Everything I'm predicting today is, actually realistic. I've studied, cap space. I know what post June 1st means. I've watched all of these prospects that I'm getting to. Everything I'm saying actually could happen. So let's not waste any time here. Three moves for every team. Let's start off with the Raiders because they have the first pick. Looking over at the team needs, I got quarterback, left guard, linebacker, defensive tackle, center. There's a lot going on. This team's not very good. The first thing I would do is I would trade Maxx Crosby for whatever the best offer is. That's probably like a first rounder and some change. You'll save $30 million. He's just not going to be around when this team's actually ready to go compete. It's a very loaded division. On top of that, maybe get like the 25th overall pick, DJ Moore in a return. If you could trade him to the Chicago Bears, I got a different landing spot later in the video. The second thing I would do is I got to address the interior offensive line. How about right guard Elijah Vera Tucker from USC? He was with the Jets. He's missed a lot of time, but he's very good when he's healthy. He's only 27 years old. Play the long-term view here. Help out Fernando Mendoza, who will be the first overall pick. If they get that 25th overall pick, let's go and grab TJ Parker, an edge rusher, power rusher, young player, upside with some development. You're going to have to replace Maxx Crosby. They also have Malcolm Kuntz heading into free agency. So you're going to have to find some defensive line talent as well. So right around that round 1-2 turn, if they can trade Maxx Crosby for a pick in this range, TJ Parker is somebody to look after. Number 2, the New York Jets team needs. I got quarterback, guard, defensive tackle, edge rusher, and an outside corner. They're also fourth in cap space. There's not a quarterback that you can draft this high up. So I think the first move I would make, and it's going to be disgusting, so bear with me, Derek Carr for cheap. There's a lot of connections here. First of all, Derek Carr in a podcast just obviously just referenced going to the New York Jets. Bill Musgrave is now the quarterback's coach. That used to be his offensive coordinator back in the day. So the roster isn't ready to compete. The 2027 draft class should be loaded. We talked about Arch Manning, Deontay Moore, Lenora Sellers. There's some other guys that are going to be in the round 1 mix as well. That's when you're going to find your quarterback of the future. So bite the bullet, go with Derek Carr, be able to evaluate your Garrett Wilsons, your Adonai Mitchells, Mason Taylor, those type of guys. Get a veteran in there, kind of like at least ride the wave for one season. They also have that 16th overall pick, though. There's a couple corners that I would give Aaron Glenn here. Aaron Glenn, you are a defensive backs coach. They need a Sauce Gardner replacement. So you have Jermon McCoy coming off a big injury, and then Colton Hood, who I actually really liked going back and watching him. So those guys are going to be like late to mid-round, first-round picks. Give the Jets one of them for the Sauce Gardner. And then at 33rd overall, how about Lee Hunter, defensive tackle? I absolutely love this dude. He's a nose tackle. He's got a big belly. His nickname is the Fridge, but he actually has some pop. He's actually pretty nimble for what he is. They have a new 3-4 defensive line coach there. He can be the nose tackle and actually give you some pass rush juice there. They have some like speed rushers. The ends here without Quinnen Williams right now, that's the spot that they need. Lee Hunter would be fantastic for the New York Jets. Arizona Cardinals team needs quarterback, right tackle, running back, free safety, and linebacker. They're 12th in cap space. If I was running the team, I would just keep Kyler Murray. It sounds crazy because everyone assumes he's going. I think most likely he will go. But you have a new offensive-minded head coach. Right now, if you're going to trade Kyler Murray away, the only way that's probably going to get done, you're going to have to eat more of his contract. There's going to be a lot of dead money associated with this. Look around the NFL. Like, who are you bringing in that's going to be better than Kyler Murray? Like, let's say he's a league average quarterback. I'll even grant you he might be the 23rd best quarterback in the league. It's hard to find an upgrade over them. If you can keep him around for one more year, the contract's a little bit easier to work from. So I would just give him LaFleur, give him one more chance. I don't think that's what's going to happen. Maybe, LaFleur has connections to Malik Willis. Same thing with Monty Ossenfort going back to the Tennessee Titans. But if you do go for Malik Willis, you're going to have to pay Malik Willis. Then you have to pay Kyler Murray to go away. Is that really better than just keeping Kyler Murray for one more year? I'm not sure. I do think the most likely scenario, though, is they just had enough of Kyler Murray, and I think he will most likely be gone. Second move I would make, third overall pick, Spencer Fanu, the right tackle for Utah, really nimble out there. He doesn't get beat around the edge like very often at all. There's some pretty crazy PFF stats floating out there. He's just really athletic, and I think that pound for pound wise is actually very strong. You can see that in the run game on top of it. So they don't have a right tackle on the roster right now. A couple free agents on the offensive line. Whoever's going to be the quarterback, whether that's Kyler Murray, Malik Willis, or just Jacoby Brissett again, you're going to have to rebuild the offensive line. I think that the third overall pick going to Spencer Fanu makes a lot of sense. They also have the 34th overall pick. How about CJ Allen, the linebacker from Georgia? He's only 20 years old. He's a big communicator. Kirby Smart defense. They have a lot of investments on the defensive line and the secondary right now. They need somebody over the middle that can just kind of piece everything together. There's a lot going on that defense. I think one more piece over the middle, someone that's going to over communicate, probably going to go a long way for the Arizona Cardinals. Tennessee Titans team needs edge rusher, outside wide receiver, right guard, and a cornerback. They have the most cap space in the NFL. They're in good shape there. They don't need a quarterback. First move, I think probably the guy that's going to make the most money in free agency, Jalen Phillips, edge rusher, just traded to the Eagles. I think he'd be perfect for Robert Saleh, outside edge rusher, just get after the quarterback. Last year, he was the number 8 edge rusher in true pass rush win rate. That's a very good stat. He's only 27 years old. He should make a ton of money. He can play all downs there. That's what Robert Saleh is looking for. So Jalen Phillips, probably my favorite to get the most money, aside from, maybe George Pickens, who I think will end up getting extended. Second move I'd make, how about sign Michael Pittman Jr.? Technically, he's not a free agent right now. We're going to get to the Colts in a little bit. If I was the Colts, I would, re-sign Alec Pierce, trade away Michael Pittman. I think trading for Michael Pittman or signing him if he gets released makes a lot of sense. He can play inside and outside. They had a kind of a pretty good hit as a slot player in the last draft, but I think both of their outside receivers could get upgraded on. That's from Alec Iomanor, or that's from Calvin Ridley. Michael Pittman, I think, makes a lot of sense, kind of settle down things for Cam Ward. And then over at 35th overall, how about some juice to the offense? Casey Concepcion, he's smaller, but absolutely can fly. He had some incredible kick returns against LSU, so you can see like his absolute pop. Mostly an outside wide receiver, 66% of the snaps, kind of has that inside out versatility. I just think that Cam Ward should not rank where he has this last year on downfield passes. He has a lot more arm talent than that. Let's find somebody that can actually stretch the field for him. Casey Concepcion is just that. New York Giants, team needs right tackle, right guard, receiver, outside corner, linebacker. They got a lot going on. The defense was not very good. The first move I would make is trade Kayvon Thibodeau. That would save $15 million. I think you'd be able to get a couple low-end starters with that money. You'll be able to get some level of a draft pick. You already have 2 stud edge rushers in Abdul Carter and Brian Burns. What's the point? He's in a rotation. This is the time to trade him going into that 5th-year option. No dead money. If you can find a trading partner, that would be pretty easy to do. Next thing I would do, you got to re-sign both of the offensive line starters that are hitting free agency. That's a right guard and right tackle. The offensive line was pretty dang good this last year. Jackson Dart had a pretty decent season. I would just kind of run it back with the same starting 5 out there, and I would look for the draft to maybe find some like day 3, day 2 developmental types. But I really think that the same starting 5 offensive linemen for the Giants this last year, just keep the train moving. Things were pretty much rock solid, especially with Jermaine Illuminor. I know he's a little bit older, but he's kind of playing the best ball of his career right now. The Giants have the 5th overall pick. I would go with Carnell Tate there, kind of pair him up with Malik Neighbors coming off that torn ACL. Neighbors can do everything. Neighbors was definitely a tier above Carnell Tate as a prospect, but Neighbors can kind of like do a lot of the underneath stuff that you're looking for, where Carnell Tate's going to be on the perimeter, downfield threat. That really matches up with Jackson Dart's style. So I think Carnell Tate plus Malik Neighbors, that makes a lot of sense as a duo. But also Jackson Dart, very aggressive, wants to throw the ball down the field. Darius Slayton was dropping everything down the field. Let's get Carnell Tate, an early declare out of Ohio State. I think that would be a great pairing for the Giants offense here. So they got to fix the defense, maybe better coaching, maybe one more piece in the secondary along the way, but re-sign the starters on the offensive line, get Carnell Tate with Malik Neighbors, and let's party with Jackson Dart. Cleveland Browns, team needs quarterback for sure. Right tackle, right guard, left guard, and center. They basically don't have a single offensive lineman right now. They need a slot corner, I think wide receiver, linebacker because of free agency. And guess what? They have basically no money. You can like restructure Denzel Ward for some relief here. The first thing I would do is probably just re-sign Tevin Jenkins. He played basically just like the entire month of December. Young player. They signed him on a 1-year deal. He started to flash, and I would just re-sign him. You got one of your 5 offensive linemen ready to go right there. Keep it moving. He's probably also not going to be that expensive just based off of the way his entire career's gone. At 6 overall, this is where I'm going to get some beef going. All right. Francis Mauigoa, big right tackle. I think ultimately he's probably going to end up at guard, but this year for a bad Browns team, try him at right tackle to see if he can move his feet quick enough to stay out there. If not, there's your long-term replacement at one of the guard spots where I think he'd be really good. It's going to be hard to kind of find starters at either one of the tackle spots in free agency because basically they have no money. So at 24th overall, how about another one? Monroe Freeling, the left tackle from Georgia. He's kind of the opposite of Francis Mauigoa. He's really tall. He's pretty linear, but he's also really athletic. And I think he's just going to be a long-term left tackle. He might go much higher than 24th overall when everything's kind of set, but I think going with Mauigoa on the right side, Monroe Freeling on the left side, and you're just going to have to find the quarterback the next offseason here. But when you do get that quarterback, you're going to at least want, more than 0 offensive linemen on the roster. Washington Commanders team needs. I got outside receiver, edge rusher, linebacker, slot receiver, and a left guard here. They're 5th in cap space, so they got a lot of holes to fill, but also a lot of money to work with. First thing I would do is I'm not giving Brandon Ayuk the damn blank check. Like if it's under $15-20 million per year, not that much guaranteed money, sure, why not? There's some chemistry, obviously, with Jaden Daniels, the front office, maybe re-signing Deebo Samuel. You could get it. But you can't just give this guy the blank check after what he did to the 49ers. I would be worried that the Commanders are going to be the team that does that. I would just make sure I'm being morally correct here, staying within myself and not letting Brandon Ayuk run the show just because you need another outside wide receiver. On defense, a lot of issues here. My second move I would do is I would sign Nakobe Dean. Middle of the defense needs to get a lot younger and a lot faster. Bobby Wagner is a free agent, racked up a ton of tackles. There's a lot of plays where there's a tight end or a receiver or a running back just running way down the field and Bobby Wagner chasing after him. Nakobe Dean's going to solve that issue immediately, and I don't think that the Eagles are going to be able to re-sign him looking at the draft picks that they've had at that position, Zach Bond, in their current cap situation. At 7th overall, how about Ruben Bain, Miami? Huge outside edge rusher, can kind of line up on the inside as well. He can play either scheme. He was a 3-4 defensive end / outside linebacker for the Hurricanes. He can kind of do everything. He's going to eat up a bunch of snaps. They got a lot of pending free agents. I think that most likely for Ruben Bain, probably not going to go top 4 because of the arm length, but I think a really productive player, kind of a high floor player with a lot of attitude, really would be a good fit for the Washington Commanders. New Orleans Saints team needs left guard, defensive tackle, edge rusher, wide receiver, slot corner, couple other low end positions. Call me crazy, not a surprise at all. They are currently over the cap. They are always over the cap. They're going to restructure some guys, but it's just the situation they found themselves over the last couple of years. The number one thing I would do for the Saints, do not extend Alvin Kamara, Taysom Hill, Cam Jordan. Just don't do it. I know it's tempting. You want to do it. These guys have been on the team forever. Enough's enough. These guys, Taysom Hill, Cam Jordan, let them walk. Alvin Kamara, do not sign him once again. Let's move on here. We have some young pieces. Let's turn the page here. First thing I would do not do the same things you've been doing for the last 5 years. I don't think they will. At 8th overall, I'm pairing Chris Olave with Mekhi Lemon out of USC, a slot wide receiver. Once again, just two polar opposite players, both very good in their own ways. Chris Olave, who I think they're going to extend this offseason, he's down the field. Mekhi Lemon, slot wide receiver, kind of a beefed up guy over the middle, really tough. And we have a big history with Kellen Moore, with slot types, CeeDee Lamb, Keenan Allen, you name it. I think that these two guys would pair with each other really well, get the most out of Tyler Shuck going into his second season. I think 8th overall is kind of the range for Mekhi Lemon. At 42nd overall, how about a guard, Chase Besantis? I was listening to a clip from Brandon Thorne and Dane Brugler. Dane Brugler was talking to Besantis' strength and conditioning coach, who's apparently been there forever, long-term guy. He was making the case that Besantis might be the strongest player he's ever coached. Seems good to me. Being really strong definitely is going to matter here. You've hit on Kelvin Banks at the left tackle spot. Get a guard here. Keep Tyler Shuck moving. They've had a lot of kind of players get injured over the years on the offensive line. Let's shore it up with a really strong player in Chase Besantis. All right, before we get moving, just if you've made it this far, you're going to watch the whole video, but please, please, please subscribe. We've low-key hit kind of a little plateau here on the channel at 168,000. I want that number up here. We're going to do a lot of NFL draft coverage, mock drafts, of course, just kind of one solo videos for all the top prospects. My top 40 rankings are coming back. Josh Norris coming back as a dad in a couple weeks here to hit the NFL Combine. Lots of stuff going on. We'll get to fantasy football in the offseason, but for the next couple months, if you're here for the NFL draft, we're going to have a ton of content for you. Once again, my top 40 rankings are coming up on the website in just a couple days here, and then we'll make sure to hit on the NFL Combine. So please like, subscribe, hit me in the comments with what you would do out there. Whatever you need, boost that algo, help us out, play on Underdog while you're at it, promo code the show. All right, moment probably a lot of you guys have been waiting for the Kansas City Chiefs. They're picking 9th overall. Pretty weird already. Team needs, I got an outside corner, free safety, running back, edge rusher, and yes, an X receiver, especially with the Rashee Rice news. We'll see if he gets suspended there, but it's like another issue with Rashee Rice. First thing I'm doing if I'm the Chiefs, I think you got to cut Jawan Taylor. That's their right tackle. That would save $20 million. There's some replacements in the draft. Kid out of ASU, the Clemson kid, not really a kid who's been around forever, but some right tackle options in round 1, early round 2 that they can go after. And then the next thing I would do is I'm re-signing Jalen Watson. He's been their top outside corner. There's huge on-off splits from when he was healthy and injured on that defense. I think he's the top free agent in the corner position. By the way, we have a huge video, the top players at every single position. Make sure to go watch that. We talked about Jalen Watson on that one. I would re-sign Jalen Watson, save some of the money from Jawan Taylor, give that money over to Jalen Watson. You're also going to have to make a big decision on Trent McDuffie, who does not have long-term money right now. He actually might be a little bit of a trade candidate, but Jalen Watson, really physical corner on the outside. I'd make sure he does not leave in free agency. 40th overall pick. How about this one? Offer it for Brian Thomas. I think the Jaguars will listen to offers here. I'm not sure if Brian Thomas would fetch a first-round pick after this last season, but Brian Thomas would make so much sense for Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes has been desperate for a downfield wide receiver who's not 5'8", 170 pounds. Brian Thomas is like 6'3", is just as fast as the rest of the guys that they have on the roster. He can also be used underneath, which obviously is a huge Andy Reid just specialty. But man, they just need like a 3rd and 6 ball winner against man coverage down the field. That's exactly Brian Thomas. I would be looking to buy the dip on somebody who had a really special rookie season. They are just so desperate for somebody like Brian Thomas. Maybe that's Carnell Tate at 9th overall, but if he gets sniped in front of you, how about on day 2, go call Jacksonville, a really aggressive GM there, make a big case for Brian Thomas, 40th overall. I do think it's about the trade compensation that the Jaguars might have to accept. Bengals, they're picking 10th. Their team needs defensive tackle, free safety, right guard, corner, linebacker, and edge rusher, pretty much an entirely new defense. First thing I'm doing, because they have a bunch of cap space, I think they're 7th in cap space. How about you sign the top safety in the class? That's Cam Curl. Trusted deep safety for Sean McVay the last couple years. He actually led the position in solo tackles with 79 of them, so it can really do it all. He's going to make a lot of money, but man, they've been so bad at safety recently since losing out on Jesse Bates, moving on from Lou Anarumo. Tight ends just absolutely murked the Bengals this entire last season. Cam Curl, get serious at safety for once in your lives, Bengals. Other thing you got to do, you got to find a defensive tackle. How about the best defensive tackle in the class? John Franklin Myers, he's 29 years old. This last year for the Broncos, he was the defensive tackle number 8 in pass rush win rate. This team could not get after the passer. They don't have defensive tackles right now. How do we get a productive 3 technique like John Franklin Myers out there? And then at 10th overall, they're in a good spot to kind of go either way. I'm going to make the case, just trade out of it. So Bengals pick at 10th overall in the draft, and I think you can go either way. They're in a pretty good spot. If you want to trade up, go get Caleb Downs. He would be awesome. If you miss out on Cam Curl in free agency, go trade up for Caleb Downs. He can truly do everything. He fixes everything wrong with this Bengals defense. Or take the 10th overall pick and trade down for some of the defensive tackles. There's probably not a defensive tackle that would take at 10th overall, but if you get down into the 20s, There's a couple of them. You have Caleb Banks, a massive like three technique out of Florida. There's like just pure run stuffing types later on at Ohio State. There's Peter Woods. There's a bunch of defensive tackles. Most of them are going to go in the 20s and 30s. So if you do need to address that position, trading down for a couple of those guys, add a couple of day 2 picks along the way, I think that would be pretty smart. So that 10th overall pick, up for Caleb Downs, down for defensive tackles. Let's get out of this 10th overall pick, but they're in a pretty good spot to at least address that defensive line in the draft.
Hair loss. Many men suffer it from ages, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. And if you think you are starting to thin and look in the mirror every single day, and it's going back and back and back with that receding hairline, now's the time to do something about it. And I know a big hang up, a big stumbling block is, man, it's just going to take way too much time. You shouldn't have to go out of your way to feel like yourself. So Hims brings expert care straight to you with 100% online access to personalized treatment plans that put your goals first. And there are no hidden fees. There are no surprise costs, just real personalized care on your schedule. So for simple online access to personalized and affordable care for hair loss, ED, weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/underdog. That's hims.com/underdog for your free online visit. hims.com/underdog. Individual results may vary based on topical and oral minoxidil and finasteride. Featured products include compounded drug products, which the FDA does not approve or verify for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. See website for full details, restrictions, and important safety information. Thank you, Hims, for sponsoring the show.
Number 11, Dolphins team needs. I got quarterback, edge rusher, outside receiver, outside corner, slot corner, and even a right guard. First thing I'm doing is I'm going to trade Minkah Fitzpatrick. That's going to save $13 million. He's just not part of the timeline that the Dolphins are clearly on, which is a full tank job. They're also going to try to trade Bradley Chubb. They already said they would release him. They can get somebody that's going to address the $20 million that he's owed. You can trade Bradley Chubb on top of that. The next thing I would do is I would trade for Anthony Richardson. Let's bring him back home into Florida. It's pretty much a risk-free bet. The Colts are going to move on from Anthony Richardson. Worst case, he stinks, and then you get a better 2027 pick, which is where you're going to get all of the big prospects that we just mentioned earlier on in the show. Best case scenario, Anthony Richardson looks like the 4th overall pick randomly in a new change of scenery, and you have your quarterback fixed. So they're going to move on from Tua. I looked at the details of that. What's going to happen is they're going to wait and use the post-June 1st designation. He's not going to be on the team. They're not going to be able to trade Tua away. He's going to be used as a post-June 1st, spread out the dead money over the next 2 seasons. That's what's going to happen there. Anthony Richardson and Quinn Ewers, that's what you're going to have with the Miami Dolphins. That's probably how you get a top 5 pick in the next draft. At 11th overall, how about another one? Vega Ione. I thought he was awesome at Penn State. He played left guard there. If you do draft him, he can be your right guard of the future. That would give the entire offensive line like really strong players, from Patrick Paul to your center, Aaron Brewer, who's fantastic. Austin Jackson's been there for a while at right tackle, and then left guard this last year, former second round pick from the last year's draft class. Has a lot of investment on the offensive line. You have Devon Achane, you have Anthony Richardson there. And then for the next quarterback, you have 5 offensive linemen that are going to be under contract. I don't think that's the worst plan. Build out the offensive line before you get your quarterback of the future. That's smart game planning. Dallas Cowboys team needs: outside corner, outside receiver, edge rusher, running back, linebacker, free safety. First thing I'm doing, this is the easiest thing I'll say on this entire podcast. You extend George Pickens. You can tag him. You can use that initially, but don't do the same stuff you've been doing and just delay the contracts. They just get more expensive. The cap space that they have is a lot easier to manage if you extend someone like George Pickens. Be smart, push out the money long-term, extend it for multiple years. You know you have to do it. That's how you're going to get the most out of Dak Prescott. The offense was fine this last year. Perfect complement for CeeDee Lamb over the middle. He was fantastic. Pay George Pickens long-term so you don't do the same mistakes that you keep doing for the Dallas Cowboys over the last couple years. The second thing I'm doing, trade Kenny Clark. They just traded for him, part of the Micah Parsons trade. They already have two other defensive tackles, obviously with Quinnen Williams being the big one from the last trade deadline there. You just don't need the third guy at this cap space. They're pretty tight against the cap right now for the reasons I just laid out because of previous off seasons. You need better corners. You need better edge rushers. Like, get rid of Kenny Clark, upgrade the other positions there. It's just kind of diminishing returns when you have that much investment for the defensive tackles out there. And that brings me to the 12th overall pick. Let's draft Sonny Styles here, linebacker out of Ohio State. So fast, plays the run really well too, kind of like weaves out in and out of traffic really well, just extremely fast. I think there's a couple glimpses where tight ends and running backs kind of leak out on him. So I think the coverage skills will get better the more he plays. But he was a safety playing a new position. He just looks like he's built out of a lab. I think long term, like the upside is he can move around like Fred Warner does. He can take some development there, but they have no linebackers. They were super slow at linebacker. Sonny Styles is going to be an awesome fit immediately. And just watch him like weave throughout traffic to make some of these huge hits out in the flats against running backs out there. Really fun player in Sonny Styles. I think that he's commonly mocked to the Dallas Cowboys, and I think it makes a ton of sense if he falls this far. Atlanta Falcons, they would have been picking 13th overall, but they traded this pick. Team needs defensive tackle, linebacker, tight end, quarterback, wide receiver, outside corner. And by the way, the guy that they traded, for this pick, he might be going to prison. So not looking good for the Atlanta Falcons. First thing I would do, I'm tagging Kyle Pitts. He earned the $16 million when you're looking at the contracts at the tight end position. I think that he earned the $16 million just the late breakout from this last year. I'd be a little bit nervous to do the long-term extension that he might be looking for. 1 year franchise tag on Kyle Pitts. Buy yourself another season to see how real that breakout was. I guess I'll call it a late breakout. He had an awesome rookie season, but reintroduced himself as a premier talent at the position. Franchise tag for Kyle Pitts. Second thing I'm doing, first day of the draft, you just got to get off the internet. It's just not going to be kind. We're going to make fun of you, Falcons fans. We're going to make fun of you, Terry Fontenot. Just best thing you can do, just get off the internet. You're not going to be picking in round one. And we'll see you on day 2 when you're picking at 48th overall. And that's where I'm looking at someone like Kristen Miller, Georgia defensive tackle. He's somebody that, like, he looks the part. I can tell he's going to be good. He just needs some damn development. Good news for the Falcons. They can use some time to get things right. We still don't know if they have the quarterback position solved. Lots of flashes on the defenses last year, but they're going to need some interior players. It's just a position that they've kind of ignored since losing Grady Jarrett. So Kristen Miller, 3 technique, maybe some pass rush juice long-term after some development. Baltimore Ravens, they pick 14th. Team needs, I got defensive tackle, center, edge, free safety, outside receiver, tight end, and an outside corner here. First thing I'm doing, Tyler Linderbaum, you're not leaving. Don't even let him get to free agency. Extend him before it starts. I expect this to be the case. Tyler Linderbaum's been very good for Lamar Jackson, very smart, very athletic. Don't let him leave the building. I would be very surprised if he did. That part's pretty easy. The next big move I'm making, and this is the big one, trade for Maxx Crosby. I was looking around the NFL. The Ravens do make a lot of sense for Maxx Crosby. They drafted Mike Green. He's a speedy edge rusher number 2, but Maxx Crosby is like a win now player. This Ravens team needs to go. Like, right now, we're in the prime of Lamar Jackson's career. We got to get really serious on the defensive line. I think that Justin Matabuke is going to be retiring, or he's just not going to be part of the picture. They need like a real pop up front. Maxx Crosby is just that. He just feels like a Baltimore Raven. On top of that, it's a position that this team always addresses. Right now, they feel a little bit weak on the defensive line, especially on the edge. Maxx Crosby figures that out. You can dangle the 14th overall pick for Maxx Crosby. I think that'd be a really good use of cap space for the Baltimore Ravens. At 45th overall, how about a wide receiver with some size? I haven't got to the round 2, round 3 wide receivers just yet. I'll save my thoughts on exactly who that's going to be. There's a guy from Tennessee. I know there's a kid from Louisville. Lots of options there. I'll save my exact take for later on there. But a wide receiver with some size would be fantastic. Zay Flowers is cool, but he's not a like legit number 1 in ways that I'm looking for. Rashad Bateman just kind of has not hit that next gear that we've been looking for. Mark Andrews, really surprised that they gave him that extension. He's not the same player that he used to be. Getting a wide receiver with some size would kind of put all those guys I just mentioned into the roles that they actually belong to. So rolled the dice on day 2. That's where you found some pretty good hits recently, especially at this kind of like X receiver downfield threat, big guy. I think that this would be a good range at 45th overall. Tampa Bay Buccaneers team needs edge rusher, defensive tackle, tight end, linebacker, X receiver, and an outside corner. First thing I'm doing, I'm not extending Baker Mayfield. This is going to be the last year of his deal. I would call it 2026 the last go at it with the coaching staff, with this kind of core of players. I don't want to sign Baker Mayfield long term. Let's say he's the 16th best quarterback today. Is he going to get better than that? I think this is just what he is. He's a streaky player. You can get hot with him. He's good enough to go on a run if the rest of the team around him is good. But once you start paying Baker Mayfield $40-50 million a year, then that's when the rest of the roster kind of bleeds out on you. So I would just stick with it right here. His contract is fine for this year. Do not get greedy and sign him just because you're desperate long term. This is the last year with the Buccaneers with this roster. Let's keep it that way. I think that's best for the long-term health of the franchise. But because you're playing for 2026, let's sign Trey Hendrickson. I'm very curious what to see his market's going to be after the injury that he had this last year. Did not play much football. This is one where if you're going to give him a big deal, front load the money. You're all in right now. This has been a weak spot at defensive edge rusher for Todd Bowles. They tried to do it with Hassan Reddick, just did not work out. Trey Hendrickson, a much higher ceiling, higher floor player than Hassan Reddick was. That solves that. At 15th overall, this is where you could find that more like 3 technique type. Logan Hall hitting free agency. So you obviously have Vita Vea and Kalijah Cansey. Somebody like Caleb Banks was somebody that I was considering here. 15th overall might be a little bit spicy for that, but if you move up and down the draft board, I do think one more defensive lineman on the interior next to Vita Vea and Kalijah Cansey is something on Todd Bowles, maybe pun intended there, checklist for this offseason. Number 16, the Indianapolis Colts team needs quarterback, right tackle, edge rusher. They need a safety. They need an outside wide receiver. They also need a linebacker. Of course, they're actually not picking 16th overall. That's going to the New York Jets. So what do we have to do? I'm working under the assumption that Daniel Jones is going to sign like a 2-year deal here. So I'm not including that. I think that's just kind of what's going to happen. It's maybe like a little free spot on the bingo card. Instead, for the Colts, my number one move, I want to re-sign Alec Pierce and I want to trade Michael Pittman. Trading Michael Pittman would save $24 million. If you can't find a trading partner for that money, you can release him and save the same amount. Either way, take the $24 million you'd be giving to Michael Pittman and take it and give it to Alec Pierce. Right now, Alec Pierce is doing things down the field that the rest of the roster cannot do. Michael Pittman works over the middle mostly. You have Tyler Warren. You obviously have Josh Downs. Alec Pierce started to do that a little bit more this last year on top of that, plus what you get from Jonathan Taylor. I think just stylistically, Alec Pierce giving him the bag instead of Michael Pittman makes a lot of sense. And I do think this is actually going to happen too. So Michael Pittman, the trade partner, will find one of those landing spots later on in the show if I haven't done that already. Number 2 move, trade Anthony Richardson. Look, it's just not going to work out with him. You have Riley Leonard. He's probably going to be the week 1 starter while Daniel Jones comes back from that torn Achilles. I thought Riley Leonard did enough in that last week, and he had enough buzz as a prospect to be the backup behind Daniel Jones. And that brings me to 47th overall. That's got to be an edge rusher. They got a lot of free agents at the position between Kwity Paye and Samson Ebukam. They got Liatu Latu, but they were still 30th in pass rush win rate. So I'll get to like the 47th overall edge rushers later on when I start to study these guys. But I do think edge rusher is on the to-do list. And there's obviously a lot of links with Trey Hendrickson just because Lou Anarumo is in town. Number 17, we got the Detroit Lions team needs edge rusher, defensive tackle, linebacker, slot corner, left tackle, and then also an interior player there depending on how they view Tate Ratledge. Currently, they are over the cap. They're going to restructure the Jared Goff contract here. So what could they do? I would sign slot corner Elante Taylor from the Saints. He's a good athlete. He's a blitzer. That's going to be helpful because Brian Branch is coming off that serious injury. Amik Robertson, the slot corner for them, he's hitting free agency. Alontae Taylor does a lot of the things that this defense likes to do. He's a pending free agent. The Saints have their own cap issues right now, so he might actually sneak out into free agency. I'd also go try to sign someone like Boye Mafe from the Seahawks, an edge rusher, 27 years old. He's not nearly as good as the Aiden Hutchinson tier. There's kind of a lot of these guys, the Boye Mafe tier of there's maybe 5 or 6 guys, young-ish, 27, 29 years old. There's a bunch of them. Boye Mafe was my favorite of that bunch in free agency. Last year, he was edge rusher number 8 in pass rush win rate. So a lot of pop for Boye Mafe would be a good compliment for Aiden Hutchinson. At 17th overall, double dip at the position, Keldrick Falk, young, physical edge rusher, like really, really, really big. Needs some development, kind of like the same move over and over and over with him. Did not get nearly as many outside reps as some of the other edge rushers there, kind of like a dirty work player there, but that makes sense. I can kind of see him as a Dan Campbell guy. Just in general, the Lions have a couple of free agents at edge rusher, and they just were not good enough there on the defensive line by the end of the season there. Number 18, the Vikings. Team needs quarterback, free safety, corner, linebacker, slot, wide receiver. They have the worst cap space situation in the NFL pretty much. Dead last in current cap space. They're going to have to cut starters like Aaron Jones, I think is going to get cut. Maybe a defensive tackle or an edge rusher going to get cut. So the first move I'm doing beyond that is I'm trading TJ Hawkinson. That would save $8 million. They just don't use him enough. His numbers really fell off since that injury. I do think another team would trade for the $8 million that he would be owed. But they're just not a use for him right now. Second move I'm making, Geno Smith. I'm picking him up for nothing. Maybe you have to trade a last pick in the draft for Geno Smith. But I think he'd be very cheap. Geno Smith just fits the Kevin O'Connell offense. Kevin O'Connell wants to push the ball down the field. He's been really good with veteran quarterbacks. That's exactly what Geno Smith is. J.J. McCarthy, I do not think is going to be the week 1 starter. I think that Geno Smith can teach J.J. McCarthy, hey, it might not work out in your first spot. It might not work out in the first couple of years here. Hold the line, put the work in. Maybe J.J. McCarthy can have a good career later on. I just don't think the Vikings are in a spot with the rest of the roster to be serious with J.J. McCarthy as a week 1 starter. Bring in Geno Smith for pretty much nothing. I think that's a good plan. At 18th overall, this one's pretty easy. You hand the keys to Brian Flores. You pick your favorite player in the draft. That could be one of the volunteers at corner. There's 2 guys, Ramon McCoy, Colton Hood out there. They can use some young players at corner. They can go at, linebacker, nickel corner. There's a bunch of different options here for the Minnesota Vikings. They obviously need a safety with Harrison Smith retiring on top of that. Brian Flores, you gave him the biggest contract at defensive coordinator for a reason. Let him pick one guy. They're still missing one guy in the secondary, really launch that defense. I think you can make the same argument at edge rusher, though. They've really put a lot of draft picks into that position on top of it. Carolina Panthers, team needs center, linebacker, free safety, edge rusher, slot corner, defensive tackle. Luckily for the Panthers, they don't have a lot of premium positions they need to fill out, and the cap space isn't so terrible right now. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm not extending Bryce Young. You got the 4th year, you got the 5th year option, pick up the 5th year option, and then you got the franchise tags beyond that if he plays into it. Or if he balls out this year, then you can sign him to a contract. I don't think that he's earned long-term extension quite yet. 5th year option, slow play this thing out. You do not want to turn this thing into the Tua problem where there was enough flashes for you to buy in, but ultimately was just not good enough to go where you wanted to when you're giving them these huge contracts like we see with the Miami Dolphins right now. That's how you get into a really bad spot. Slow play this thing out with Bryce Young. Take that money, sign Leo Chenal. They need a linebacker with some freaking pop to him. Really physical player, a freak athlete. The Panthers last year were 27th in EPA per carry allowed. Linebacker play was not good enough. They got a couple of free agents at linebacker on top of that. There's a couple of these types out there that have played a lot of ball in the NFL. Get serious, Leo Chenal, big time linebacker. Get better against the run. At 19th overall, how about the other Miami edge rusher, Akeem Mesidor? He's not for everybody just because he's really old, but he was from Canada, like entered college under 200 pounds. Now he's massive. And I think his tape is pretty dang good. So obviously you can't draft somebody this old in the top 10. Could you draft him at 19th overall? I think that's a really good range for him. Really physical player. You got Nick Scorton. You got some other day two players from the last draft at the position. One physical first round type, I think would do really well for the Carolina Panthers' entire defensive line. Before we keep this thing going, right now, promo code the show over on Underdog. We have best ball drafts. If you're still itching for some fantasy football stuff, you can draft the current prospects that we're talking about today for next year's fantasy drafts. We have that over on Underdog. Prediction markets, we're live in more places, more states than ever before. We're going to have some stuff with the NFL draft. We just had a huge Super Bowl on top of that. We also have like season-long projections coming your way. A lot more offerings than ever before, a lot more states than ever before. Promo code the show right now to get the latest offer over there. That's probably the best way that you guys can support this channel is go play over there. Go sign up with promo code the show. Keep the content rolling. Number 20, Green Bay Packers. Team needs defensive tackle, linebacker, outside corner, left tackle, and left guard here. They're pretty tight on cap space. I think they're going to release Elton Jenkins, kind of a versatile offensive lineman that would clear up a lot of cap space. I think the other move that you can do, and the move I would encourage, is trade Rashawn Gary. He's just too expensive. You already have Micah Parsons. You have Rashawn Gary on this contract. You can trade away some of that money, and you can just kind of hopefully, turn out Lucas Van Ness as a number 2 edge rusher. Would not be my favorite move, but right now the Packers have to make some difficult decisions. Rashawn Gary has not lived up to the price tag. Getting a pick and some of the cap space relief would go a long way. Next move I would do for the Green Bay Packers, how about just get Kenny Clark back? I mean, how funny would it be? I already mentioned that Jerry Jones has 3 defensive tackles on the roster, paying a lot of money. I don't think that's sustainable. Could you trade to get Kenny Clark back? That would be so fucking funny. And there's a chance Kenny Clark might get released. Kenny Clark would be perfect for the freaking Green Bay Packers right now. So not only would this be hilarious, it actually just makes like a lot of sense with the types of bodies that they need. They were not nearly as good stopping the run, especially late in the season. Kenny Clark helps that immediately. And what a fit. We've seen this for a half decade already. At 52nd overall, look, this is just a team that goes best player available all the time. I'll get to my top 50 later on. I don't have a good player for them right now. Just historically, they go best player available. They can use another offensive lineman because Elton Jenkins is on. Their left tackle, Walker, it doesn't sound like they're totally in love with him. So I would not be surprised if 52nd overall pick is best offensive lineman available. When I've watched enough of these prospects, I will tell you who that could be. Just not going to speak out of my butt for no reason right now. 21st overall, Pittsburgh Steelers. Team needs quarterback, left guard, outside corner, receiver, and defensive tackle. This is where I want Kyler Murray to go. And if I was the Steelers, this is the move I would be looking. We've talked about this with the Arizona Cardinals. They might have to release Kyler Murray. They could also trade him if they eat more of this money. They can lose like $17 million up for grabs that they're going to have to negotiate. If the Cardinals are going to eat some of that money and you can trade for Kyler Murray, I think the Steelers make a lot of sense. They're looking at their defense. They think they're good enough. They just made that deal for DK Metcalf. Could they kind of play both ways where you get Kyler Murray, who's not that old, and maybe you can do a Sam Darnold thing? I think that Kyler Murray is the best kind of case scenario for that Sam Darnold type of mold here this offseason. You can't do Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers. That happened 8 years ago. This cannot be the plan. 8 years ago, it was not working out. I don't know why we think this is going to work out a decade later. So I would get much younger, go Kyler Murray, much better bet than Aaron Rodgers. Second move, trading Pat Freiermuth, release Jonnu Smith. Let's simplify the rotation. We don't have Arthur Smith over at offensive coordinator anymore. It is Darnell Washington time. No more of the nonsense. Let's get serious. Darnell Washington, full-time center or full-time tight end. Trade Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith. That saves up like $15-ish million. They need that money. Put that to another wide receiver. Put that to another corner. The other positions I listed out there. And then in the draft, 21st overall, Jordan Tyson. This might be a little bit pushed down too far. They might have to move up just a little bit to get someone like Jordan Tyson, but he's a lot more fluid than DK Metcalf. He can run the entire route tree. The questions with him is just some injuries and maybe a little bit of toughness and how much fight that he has after the catch. But Jordan Tyson, a really, really nimble athlete, very fluid down the field, can really run that entire route tree. I think a good compliment to DK Metcalf, especially if they get serious at quarterback. Chargers team needs edge rusher, left guard, center, right guard, defense tackle, and a free safety. They're actually third in cap space, so they can actually fill a lot of these holes this offseason. First move I'm doing, trade Quentin Johnston. You just drafted a second rounder in Trey Harris. He was part of a rotation. Remember KLS was popping in the preseason. You already have Amari Hampton. You have Rondé Gadsden. And most importantly, like, let's actually lean on Ladd McConkey. They did not utilize Ladd McConkey nearly enough this last year. Getting rid of Quentin Johnston, who had a couple downfield touchdowns, this is the time to do it. This is not a Harbaugh selection. Let's move on from the QJ experiment. Let's instead pay for some interior starters. How about two of them? Isaac Seumalo, left guard, been in the league forever. He's a big physical left guard, be perfect for Harbaugh. And how about Wyatt Teller as veterans at the right guard spot as well? You can kind of do a Bears type of offseason where you actually have the cap space to go after some veterans, and you can immediately win in 2026. This team is ready if they can get the offensive line squared away. They have both the tackles in line already. How about a couple of veteran guards out there? There's actually a lot of veteran guards. I would go chase two of them, not one, but two, if I was the Los Angeles Chargers. In the draft, they picked 22nd overall. How about Caleb Banks, defensive tackle? There's a really good tweet. I think it was from Trevor Sikkema from the Senior Bowl, where Caleb Banks he's massive. He's like 6'6", 330, really long arms. There was a good tweet that he was just saying that Harbaugh was just staring him in the eyes. And I can just tell this one's destiny out there. They need this exact type of player. They need edge rushers as well. I think they're just going to re-sign Odafe Owe, who they traded for and had a really breakout season. Caleb Banks, 22nd overall. Boom bust prospect because he came off a broken foot. But if you guys are curious, Caleb Banks versus LSU in 2024, he was nasty. Obviously, it's a one-game sample, but off that one game, he looked like a true blue chip player. So if he falls in the draft a little bit, I can see Harbaugh saying enough is enough. I see you guys' comments. You guys are always grilling me about the eye bags. I'm clearly not sleeping enough. Maybe it's the 1-year-old. Maybe it's these dang prospects we're grinding through. And I'm being told to use ultra pouches, and they're going to be our savior. They're going to give me more energy without the nicotine, without the caffeine, without the crashes. Apparently, nicotine's going to shrink your nuts. We don't want that. You guys definitely can't afford shrinking your own nuts. It's going to lower your testosterone. We can't be having that either. Instead, ultra pouches, 90% of users saw significant improvements in their overall focus levels. A calm, steady flow state sounds pretty good. Enhanced memory, could use that. Smooth energy, mood, balance. Definitely you guys could use some of that looking at your guys' comments. All with zero nicotine, all natural. This is used by the top athletes, top entrepreneurs, top fantasy football analysts across the country. Ultra is the ultimate guilt-free pouch, delivering instant focus and mental clarity without the nicotine, without the caffeine. New customers can use promo code The Show to get 15% off at takeultra.com. That's takeultra.com for 15% off with code The Show. After your purchase, they're going to ask you, where the heck did you hear about us? That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code The Show. Don't shrink your balls, shrink your eye bags with Ultra. TakeUltra.com. Philadelphia Eagles team needs. Got right guard, outside corner, tight end, right tackle, and a left guard spot here. First thing I'm doing, I'm not trading AJ Brown until the trade deadline. I'm not talking about like the NFL draft trade deadline. I'm talking about like the trade deadline that's going to happen by Halloween this next year. I looked at this contract a ton. It would be extremely costly to trade him before June 1st, which means you are not getting draft capital in this draft for AJ Brown. I would see if things gel throughout the offseason and throughout the actual in-season. Is it the new offensive coordinator? Is that enough to get AJ Brown playing serious? And if it doesn't, then you can trade him at the deadline to a contender when the entire Eagles current staff is completely imploding. That's the coaching staff, that's the core players, that's the offensive line. Let's give this one last chance. There's a chance that offensive line gets healthy. There's a chance AJ Brown's on his best behavior and things work out. If that happens, this team could get back to the Super Bowl. If it doesn't, there's always the next year's draft that we can go trade AJ Brown for. So contract wise, it makes a lot more sense to trade him at the deadline, and hopefully they don't have to actually do that. The move I'm actually making is I'm re-signing Jalen Phillips. They just traded for him. We just saw, like with Jacoby Myers, you trade for him, then you extend him. I think Jalen Phillips is a perfect candidate to get a big bag from the Eagles. It's obviously a position that they really value. He's only 27 years old. He's good right now, but if you extend him long term, he can actually be part of the next wave after they move on from like the Lane Johnson, the AJ Browns, the Jalen Hurts type. Jalen Phillips could be part of the next wave for Howie Roseman out there. So I think it just makes a lot of sense to keep him in-house after trading for him. At 23rd overall, I think this is a good year to look at the post-Lane Johnson era. We just got news that Lane Johnson plans to play this year, but he was considering retirement. Landon Dickerson, their left guard, much younger, he was also considering retirement. Cam Jurgens was going to countries I've never even heard of for treatment for body parts I've never even heard of. That's never a good sign. Let's get an offensive lineman over here. Arizona State has a right tackle. I don't know how to pronounce his last name quite yet, but I've watched a ton of his tape. He is a freaky athlete, really long, really big already. Didn't start playing football until he was in junior college. Crazy story, but this guy's ceiling is really, really high. I can see the Eagles say you can play maybe right guard this year and then long-term be the answer for Lane Johnson. There's a couple of these types out there, but the Arizona State kid, very intriguing. I can see Howie Roseman buying low on a prospect that could end up being a real difference maker at an important position like right tackle. Number 24, Jacksonville Jaguars team needs linebacker, outside corner, free safety, defensive tackle. They're actually not picking at 24th overall because of the Travis Hunter trade. This is actually going to go to the Cleveland Browns. So what can you do in the meantime? You can trade left tackle Walker Little. He came back from injury. They found a replacement. That replacement's since gotten money. There's no reason to have Walker Little out there. He's probably an NFL starter for somebody else. Maybe like the Chicago Bears. I think I might have had Walker Little going to. But don't trade Brian Thomas. Keep him around and trade Walker Little. That's how I would do it. Brian Thomas, pretty valuable, I think, to Jacksonville. Even he's not getting like crazy amount of targets. Jacoby Myers, Parker Washington, Travis Hunter, who's mostly going to play corner this year, Brenton Strange, and then all the running back stuff that Liam Cohen works with. That's all like underneath stuff. You need somebody that's going to work down the field. That's what Brian Thomas does. It wouldn't be nearly as effective if Brian Thomas wasn't on the roster. So keep Brian Thomas, trade Walker Little, and then you have a bunch of free agents already. I would just re-sign Devin Lloyd, re-sign Travis Etienne, re-sign Monteric Brown. Those were all key starters this last year. Have a quiet offseason. They don't have that much cap space right now. They're 30th in cap space. So you're going to have to use future money to re-sign these guys. Don't make anything crazy here. Keep Brian Thomas, re-sign your core players, run it back next year with the same core, just with another year under Liam Cohen. That's what I would do. At 56th overall, that's the prime territory to find a free safety. Wingard is a free agent. At 56th overall, you can draft a safety. That's kind of like the right range for it. They've got a pending free agent. They got another old starter deep in the secondary, big post safety. There's a couple options at 56 overall. We'll get to those guys in a couple months when I watch those safeties. Number 25, Chicago Bears. Team needs outside corner, edge, defensive tackle, both safeties and a linebacker. They're in a pretty tough spot in terms of cap space. They're going to save $15 million by releasing Tremaine Edmonds. Next move I would make, trade DJ Moore. You're going to save $16.5 million. You can also trade Cole Kmet and save $8 million. If you can get buyers for those two guys, those are NFL starters, just not necessary because of the draft picks that the Chicago Bears made this last offseason. Trade those guys away, put those dollars into the defense. The other move I would make is I would trade for Walker Little. Just talked about that with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He would be your left tackle. Their left tackle that they drafted this last year, he popped his knee. Theo Benedict, whatever, Braxton Jones hitting free agency. I would just do Walker Little, stopgap option, ready to roll, veteran, just get out there in this offense immediately. And then at 25th overall, how about Caden McDonald, defensive tackle from Ohio State? I posted some of his highlights against the run. I mean, just a total monster. Obviously, extremely strong. You have to be a really good run defender, but also pretty good moving gaps as well. So Caden McDonald, you're not going to get much pass rush juice. He's like a true nose tackle there. Him just being much better against the run would help out the two edge rushers that they're paying a ton of money to. So Caden McDonald, more of a glue guy, but a necessary one for the Chicago Bears. 26th overall, Buffalo Bills, team needs edge rusher, left guard, center, outside receiver, defensive tackle, slot corner, linebacker. They're 29th in cap space. It's a lot of positions I just listed off there. They're going to be able to restructure Josh Allen. They're going to cut Dawson Knox. They're going to cut Curtis Samuel types, but they have to resign both of their center and their right guard. I would just do it, whatever it takes. Like the offensive line plus Josh Allen has been what has kept this entire team alive. Run back the offensive line. It's been good for James Cook. It's been good for Josh Allen. Both of those guys returning in their primes is a must for Buffalo. The bold move I would make is I would sign Rashid Shaheed. This is somebody I wanted the Bills to trade for at the deadline this last year. Instead, he goes to the Seahawks. They win the Super Bowl. You just got to bring back the explosiveness to this offense. I don't think he's going to be that expensive, kind of been more of a role player throughout his career, but he can fly down the football field. And they've been searching for this type of guy to bring some speed back to the offense. Rashid Shaheed to be a great fit with Josh Allen. And then at 26th overall, Cassius Howell, a speed rusher. He was the defensive player of the year for the SEC conference. Have you ever heard of that? Really productive, kind of small, but they need some juice. They need a guy to just get this team off the field. They've been signing the Von Millers and the Joey Bosas. How about drafting another first-round edge rusher? Cassius Howell has a lot of juice, even if he's going to be in a little bit of a rotation. I think that's okay at 26th overall. At 27th overall, 49ers team needs receiver, left guard, defensive tackle, center, outside corner. They're actually 10th in cap space, so they can actually fill a lot of this. First thing I would do is I would trade Mac Jones. If you can get a top 100 pick for Mac Jones, just do it. There's enough holes here that you can plug. I just don't like having a backup quarterback that I can get something for. The reality is Brock Purdy, he's a dog to get hurt this next year. Mac Jones, if somebody's going to make him a starter, let him go cook over there, be the developmental factory and actually get compensated for it. And the big move I would make is I would sign Mike Evans. You're going to let Brandon Ayuk go. Juwan Jennings is a free agent. You need an X receiver, especially with George Kittle probably not going to be back at his like max capacity early on in the season. Mike Evans can help you out in the red zone where they've had to like do like a lot of trickeration stuff. Mike Evans, just throw the ball up to him. He wants to play for a competitor. The 49ers are just that. Mike Evans would calm down this receiver room, which has had way too much off-season noise. Mike Evans, get mature, get serious at X receiver. At 27th overall, how about Peter Woods? Somebody that got like some top 10 overall love. I didn't necessarily see that. I don't think that he's long enough for that, but he is really twitched up, really pound for pound strong. There's some serious flashes there. So I do think he's going to fall into the back half of round one or even maybe early round two. But I think that he would be a perfect fit for the 49ers, a position that has not been up to standard. This is a team that always is drafting defensive linemen. I would not be surprised if Peter Woods is next. Houston Texans team needs right guard, defensive tackle, running back. They need a safety. They need a right tackle. They need a center. You guys get the story here. They're actually over the cap without having, a highly paid quarterback, kind of a weird spot to be in, but they're also third in cap space the next season. So what do? This is the offseason. You sign Will Anderson. You sign CJ Stroud to long-term extension. It's going to happen eventually. I think that CJ Stroud over the entire rookie contract has earned enough to sign that extension. It's only going to get more expensive. Same thing with Will Anderson. Use the money that you have in the future. Pay those guys now while it is the cheapest. It's only going to get more expensive. Number 2 move I'm going to do, sign Tyler Algier. He's just somebody that can handle the touches. We saw that back in his rookie season. He's a good, powerful rusher on top of that. I think Woody Marks is somebody that's maxed out as a pass down guy. I think there's a lot of wasted carries to him this last year. You're going to cut Joe Mixon for cap space, and because he can't play football right now, Tyler Algier, there's your bell cow back for this next season. At 28th overall, you're not going to obviously have me slip in without an offensive lineman here. Blake Miller, right tackle out of Clemson. He's actually played the all-time amount of snaps at Clemson. He's ready to roll. He's got a million starts. This team needs a right tackle. They kind of have a lot of guys that can move around like Titus Howard, but they've settled at guard for Titus Howard. They drafted a left tackle. Right tackle is the spot that they need. Blake Miller, late round 1 prospect, makes a ton of sense. Los Angeles Rams pick 29th and 13th overall, but team needs, I got outside corner, free safety, receiver, right tackle, and a center. They're low-key 8th in cap space, so they can actually make some serious moves here. It's a pretty aggressive front office, obviously. First move I would make, I'm trading for Riley Moss, the corner number 2 for the Denver Broncos. We'll get to them in a second. He's a rock-solid player. I think the Broncos are ready to move on because they have a first-round corner waiting to get more playing time. Riley Moss could play in zone, can play in man coverage, mostly a zone defense with the Rams. Somebody that's already started a bunch of games would be ready to go, kind of solidify the first spot. At 13th overall, I'm going to make the case to trade up for Caleb Downs. The Rams just hired the Ohio State assistant coach to be their own defensive backs coach. Cam Curl is a free agent. We'll see. I think he's going to make a lot of money. We'll see if the Rams want to pay up for that. If Cam Curl walks, Caleb Downs would be fantastic for Sean McVay's defense. He's super, super, super smart, could play everywhere. This is like a position that they really value out there, and Caleb Downs' tape is just perfect. I already know that the Rams will have a massive grade on Caleb Downs. Moving up from 13th overall up into the top 5, top 10, I think I can see this one, especially because they have that 29th overall pick. They also have a bunch of picks on day 3 on top of that. So Matthew Stafford, one last ride. Same thing with Devontae Adams. Let's get serious in the secondary. And that brings me to the 29th overall pick. Brandon Cisse, the South Carolina corner, just I think makes a lot of sense for the scheme that they're running. There's a lot of plays where he's got his back up against the sideline, eyes on the corner or the quarterback, and he just plays a lot of zone snaps where I think that his instincts and his ability to jump on things are pretty good. That's exactly kind of the traits that the Rams are going to be looking for. Once again, a ton of zone coverage, eyes on the quarterback a lot. He has experience doing that. 30th, Denver Broncos team needs defensive tackle, linebacker, tight end, running back, and a slot wide receiver. They're 14th in cap space, so they can make some moves here. First thing I'm doing, trading away Riley Moss. Jaquan McMillan, who had that crazy interception, he's a restricted free agent. You're going to return, keep him for another year, super cheap contract to get that. And then they have Jedi Barron, who played outside corner at Texas, could play on the inside. I think just a first rounder, you got to play him in the second season. There's too many guys in the secondary. Trading away Riley Moss makes the most sense. You'll be able to get maybe like the 130th overall pick for someone like Riley Moss. Next move I'm making, sign Rico Dowdle. I think he'd be a perfect complement to RJ Harvey. Harvey has a lot of juice. He's just a boom bust rusher, where Rico Dowdle, more of that thumper, J.K. Dobbins type, just a lot less of an injury history with Rico Dowdle. He was like, I think, our 5th running back in our free agency video. I think just RJ Harvey, Rico Dowdle, that tandem makes a lot of sense. At 30th overall, how about the Oregon tight end? This is an Oregon factory over there, Kenyon Sadiq. We'll see where he goes in the draft. I think he gets kind of mocked in like the top 15-ish a lot. His overall profile is more of like an early round 2 type of guy. We'll see where he ends up in the draft. But I think that the way he was used at Oregon, I can see Sean Payton doing a lot of that with it. It's a lot of like leak routes, wheel routes, runaway routes, up the seam as well. Some manufactured touches sprinkled in there. He's not like this, Colson Loveland could do everything type. He's another tier down from that. But at 30th overall, this offense could just use one more like true skill guy that moves the needle. He would do what Evan Ingram used to do back in his prime. Just not a good year for Evan Ingram last season. New England Patriots team needs. They got edge rusher, free safety, right tackle, center, tight end, and a nose tackle. They're 11th in cap space. They can use it again. I would like the Patriots to trade for Kayvon Thibodeau. The Giants have 3 edge rushers. There's no reason to have Kayvon Thibodeau. 5th-year option. You can trade for him and then extend him. The defensive tackles have a ton of juice. The defensive ends just don't. Kayvon Thibodeau would be their best outside pass rusher on the team. Lines up with the window to win. And also just like it makes sense for the Giants to get rid of him. So I think that Kayvon Thibodeau is going to get moved eventually. Next move I'd make would be to sign Isaiah Likely. Hunter Henry's in the final year of his contract. They can just use a little bit more juice after the catch. Isaiah Likely is just that. Maybe Isaiah Likely can turn into an every down player. If he's still in the same role, he can kind of learn from Hunter Henry, sign him to a long-term deal, and then in 2027, he becomes a focal point of the offense. He's a really explosive player out there. I'm very curious to see what his contract's going to be. The Ravens said, see you later. Isaiah Likely, I do think some other teams are going to value him a little bit more just because he's such a unique tight end. At 31st overall, how about the Oregon safety? Just watched him yesterday. Really versatile at Purdue. He lined up as like the post safety, deep third, would make interceptions on the sideline. And then at Oregon, had a million tackles, more of a strong safety in the box, run the alley, make a lot of tackles there. I think he's a decent athlete. He's not a crazy athlete, but his just versatility just really fits the modern NFL. I think that Mike Vrabel is going to like him a lot there. Safety is a position of need. They're pretty loaded on defense in general, but Kayvon Thibodeau and then the Oregon kid at safety would really, really make them a formidable unit moving forward. That brings us to the Seahawks Super Bowl winners. Team needs. They have outside corner, edge rusher, running back, free safety, and a right guard. They just won the Super Bowl, and then they have the 6th most cap space, so they're in a pretty good spot here. First move, re-sign the core players. Kenneth Walker's not leaving. Josh Job's not leaving. Kobe Bryant, the other one, he's not leaving as well. Those are starters on the team. Re-sign those guys, core players, young, prime, keep it moving. This next thing I'm doing is I'm going to see if I can go find a real upgrade at right guard. The Seahawks are a team built by USC Trojans, Sam Darnold, Leonard Williams, Uchenna Nwosu, even another guy that was more of a practice squatter. How about Elijah Vera Tucker, another Trojan out there? He would be a massive upgrade if he can get healthy. They have the cap space to go for like one big time move. Elijah Vera Tucker would be just that, bring another Trojan over to Seattle. At 32nd overall, how about Denzel Boston from the University of Washington? Wouldn't even have to get a new apartment, an ex-receiver type that's completely opposite from JSN. They can use one more piece. Rashid Shaheed's a free agent. We'll see if they can get something out of Torrey Horton out there. Denzel Boston, a lot of physicality, could be the number 2 wide receiver in 2 wide receiver sets. Cooper Kupp, get him back into the slot only in 3 wide receiver sets. Denzel Boston, I'm not sure if he's going to make the 32nd overall. Maybe you have to maneuver up and down the draft board, or maybe he doesn't crush the 40-yard dash at the combine. Either way, Denzel Boston, an ex-receiver, I think would be a good fit for the Seahawks. We'll do more draft content on the channel. Please like, subscribe. It really helps us out. Use promo code The Show on the Underdog app. Josh Norris will be back for the NFL Combine, which is already next week. So I got some more prospects to watch before then. Follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, especially TikTok. If you're on an app, we're on an app. Get serious about the NFL draft. Get serious about free agency. Lots of news coming. I can already feel it. Make sure you're also subscribed to the Underdog NFL news account. So with that, Hayden Winks here. I'll see you guys next week for the NFL Combine.